unconstitutional hoax.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised with your help to revolutionize the marketplace as we know it. We look forward to partnering with you.
Aloha and welcome to Trust and Verify, and thank you, come again. Prime Minister Modi, wow, what a great rally that was, huh? But before we get to the really great show we've got planned for you, I got to introduce my friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, thank you, come again.
How's it going? Very good. Very good. Very, very good deal. I hear that Donald Trump got a killer deal on beef jerky, James. I'm not sure if you're aware or not. Beef jerky and Slurpees and porno magazines that are kept below the counter in the 7-Eleven.
Nice.
Well done. Vital products going into the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Trust and Verify for another Sunday night. Remember, if you don't like the earlier time, then you can always listen to the podcast, which you can find at tavshow.com. James, how was your week? Chaotic week? Busy week?
Chaos. They took my account. I got it back. I cussed them out, even for giving it back to me. I didn't want it back. No, I'm just kidding.
I knew. James got his account back, and the first thing he does is go on his Periscope and start bashing Twitter again. And I'm sitting there going, mate, perhaps, James, as your counsel, I must advise against this course of action. You're not making it any easier on yourself. No, but it's good that you got your account back, and it just goes to show it's not all doom and gloom all the time. Sometimes these things can work out. So don't give up. If you get your account taken, don't just think, oh, well, screw it, to hell with it. You never know. It might be worth putting in an appeal, as long as you've got a good case to argue. I mean, if you're out there telling people to kill themselves and stuff because they're liberals, then you're probably not going to succeed.
Hang on. But I just want to tell you what my appeal was, the letter that I sent. I literally sent suspension with a question mark. That was the limit of my appeal. That's all I sent. The only thing I did. I didn't give him a chance to misinterpret anything. I didn't give him a chance to twist my words around. I literally sent them one word with a question mark. Fuck around and figure it out.
There you go. You did some, this isn't the account you're looking for shit.
That's right. Jedi mind trick.
Shit on them. Well done. Congratulations. The Australian Prime Minister wined and dined with the President. I didn't know. Apparently, only the second world leader to be invited for a state dinner, James, under the Trump presidency. The first one was Macron. So hopefully we were a little bit better behaved than the French, and hopefully a lot less cutlery went missing afterwards. You know, actually, we're talking about Australians here, aren't we?
It wasn't. They just didn't report how many because it was a better number than they usually lose.
Ah, good. Well, that's the main thing. They're still recovering from Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's time in the White House, from what I understand.
They took everything, even the credenzas.
They'll never get those ceremonial spoons back. They've long been hocked off, James, to purchase more cocaine, I think. But it's all just hearsay. It's all just hearsay. So we've got lots to get into. I want to open it up with Hunter Biden tonight, ladies and gentlemen, James. Now, this is going to be very interesting. There's been a lot of news about this over the last few days, but let me show you the level of deflection that's taking place here in this discussion about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And we're going to show it to you very quickly, and you can take this home and chew on it, and it's absolutely delicious. You're going to love this. Watch this.
As the President of the United States just a few moments ago, a lot to unpack there, so let me recap it quickly. He said there at the end that Vice President Joe Biden has done some very bad things. I should say there's no evidence of that, no evidence that he pressured Ukraine to do anything. There are, however...
No evidence. No evidence, Jane.
No.
It gets better. Do you know what he cites for there being no evidence?
No.
Reporting, James.
Oh, not reporting.
We learned over the course of this last week through multiple reports, evidence that Rudy Giuliani...
We learned this week through multiple reports that there is no evidence. Well, ladies and gentlemen, viewers of MSNBC, if I may introduce Exhibit A, since we're putting reporting as the standard of evidence required here, right? So that's fair. This is from Vanity Fair, James. Have you known Vanity Fair to be particularly nice to Donald Trump, particularly complimentary to the GOP?
No,
you wouldn't say that, would you?
I wouldn't say that, no. I might say the opposite.
May the 2nd. Well, it just goes to show he's citing reporting of in the last week.
Right.
So apparently our memories in the corporate press only go back 7 days now,
right.
Which is actually, to be fair, that's better than what I thought, because I was thinking like 12 minutes, more or less. Sometimes an article you read can be like from paragraph to paragraph, so that's closer to the range of 12 seconds when it comes to memory loss. But we can go back to May the 2nd here from Vanity Fair. Hunter Biden's work in Ukraine emerges as a potential 2020 scandal. See how they were chumming the waters back in May for this story? Could this be a bait and switch as well? That's something else to consider here. Could they have got the reporting going back in May and in April, and now it's become a story, and now they're going to turn around and say, oh, where did you get that idea from? Don't be silly. You guys are crazy. Crazy out there with your conspiracy theories. Have a look at this. In a move sure to trigger 2016 PTSD, the New York Times has published a nearly 3,000-word tale of intrigue involving the Biden family's previous entanglements in Ukraine. In short, the story is this. In the final year of the Obama presidency, Vice President Joe Biden threatened to withhold $1 billion in United States loan guarantees if Ukraine's leaders did not dismiss the country's top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, who had been accused of turning a blind eye to corruption in his own office and among the political elite. The pressure campaign also just so happened to benefit Biden's younger son, Hunter, who was then getting paid as much as $50,000 to sit on the board of Burisma Holdings, a Ukrainian energy company that was in Shokin's sights. The question that the Times raises but does not answer, were Joe and Hunter's overlapping interests in Ukraine coincidental or corrupt? I'm sure it's I'm sure it's just a coincidence, James. I'm sure it's a coincidence that Obama bragged about having a hand in removing the previous Ukrainian government and installing the new government with the likes of George Soros cheering on from the sidelines. Do you remember that, James?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a coincidence that took place. I'm sure it's a coincidence that in the aftermath of that coup, the vice president was over there threatening the new leadership to get rid of top prosecutors. And I'm sure it's a coincidence that his son, who has no experience in finance, no experience in energy, and no experience in the Ukraine gets put on the board of directors of an international energy company. I'm sure that's
Why
all
not?
just a big coincidence.
Huh.
Isn't it funny the way things work out sometimes? Well, jobs for the boys. The Hill, a known right-wing conspiracy website, James.
Well known.
Joe Biden's well-known. It's very well-known. 2020 Ukrainian nightmare. A closed probe is revived. This is from back in April. 2 years after leaving office, Joe Biden couldn't resist the temptation last year to brag to an audience of foreign policy specialists about the time as vice president that he strong-armed Ukraine into firing its top prosecutor. They say that there is no evidence for this. Joe Biden himself told the story. He got it. He's the one who told everybody. Now, to be fair, there's no evidence either of corn pop, so we might.
Do you have that clip? Because I have that clip. I can play. I can play that clip if you want.
What, corn pop, or where he's threatening
No. The whole clip
the
of
Fox News guy.
I have a minute 39 clip that ties a bow around everything you're doing in the article. So you tell me when you're done with the articles, and then we can tie a bow around it
just
with the
one
actual
more paragraph
video.
and then we'll roll on it. In his own words, with video cameras rolling, Biden described how he threatened Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko in March 2016 that the Obama administration would pull $1 billion in U.S. loan guarantees, sending the former Soviet republic towards insolvency if it didn't immediately fire Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin. And just a quick reminder here, ladies and gentlemen, that this is all bullshit. The good people at CNN, MSNBC, pardon me.
I should say there's no evidence of that, no evidence that he pressured Ukraine to do anything. There are, however,
There is no evidence that he pressured Ukraine to do anything other than he saying to himself that he pressured the Ukraine to do it. So I don't know. You figure it out.
It gets better. This clip I have has MSNBC itself reporting on it. Hang on.
Wait a second. Not one single credible outlet has given any credibility to his assertion. Not one single one.
Now to our ABC News investigation this morning into Joe Biden's son Hunter and questions about money he made from foreign business dealings while his father was vice president.
You have a big story tonight.
There you go. Brian Williams, folks, MSNBC.
Tomorrow, page 1 of the print edition.
Was Hunter Biden profiting off his dad's work as vice president, and did Joe Biden allow it? We're talking about millions of dollars in at least 2 countries.
We have Joe Biden as vice president having intervened to sort of force the firing of a Ukrainian prosecutor who happened to have an open case looking into a company, a Ukrainian gas company that was employing Joe Biden's son.
There's no reason to pay Hunter Biden $50,000 a month.
Hunter Biden worked for a natural gas company in Ukraine, which is totally fair game. Did the vice president's son use his dad's influence to make money somewhere in the world? That's totally fair game.
Potential conflict of interest there, and Joe Biden will have to answer for.
Hunter Biden's work with the company reportedly sparked concern among State Department officials.
But was it right for Hunter Biden to take a job like that in Ukraine while his father was engaged in diplomacy there?
There is a story here. We've told some of it. There's more to be
New
told.
York Times, you know, those Trump lovers.
I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. If the prosecutor's not fired, if the prosecutor's not fired, if the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money.
Boom! What did we tell you? There's no credible reporting, none whatsoever, on any credible news organization anywhere on the planet. Yes. None.
None whatsoever.
You know, James, when I was over in the Ukraine, which was some time ago, the country's changed quite a bit. I remember back in my day when I was a younger man, when the communists were running the place, at least the trains used to run on time. But of course, you see, back in those days, people had a lot more respect for the left-wing regimes in Europe. But anyway, I was over in the Ukraine, and I remember remarking to this young man, I think his name was Korn Popovich, and I said to Korn Popovich, if you The train is leaving at around 60 strokes of the minute hand on the clock, and if you don't dump this prosecutor post haste, well, then I'll be forced to take this most unbecoming news with myself back to Washington, because you see, back in those days, you used to have to get the cruise liner back to Washington. So in actuality, he had around 12 weeks to make a decision. And then, of course, I would send a carrier pigeon from my office in order to relay the good news to that Mr. Obama, who, of course, back in my day, we never allowed Negroes into the White House. But gee, those times have changed. I did sniff his wife's hair once on occasion. She smelt like cherry roses, which was most wonderful. So there you go. Corn Popovich. James, we've got this all wrong. Biden lashes out at Trump, accuses president of abusing power to smear him. I guess he abused his power by tweeting out MSNBC, ABC, and the New York Times talking about this article, which is just smear, and there's no credible evidence for it, James.
That's right.
This is fantastic. Former Vice President Joe Biden went on the offensive on Saturday. Is that what you would call it? Did he go on the offensive?
He definitely was offensive to at least one reporter where he was going.
Just one.
Just one.
Putting his finger in his chest. You know, back in my day, people used to sort out their problems with fisticuffs, and I don't remember anybody complaining. Listen here, you young scallywag. Don't make me take you round the back of the horseshoe sheds, or I might put a little bit of fisticuff on your chin. Are you ready for the heat? Hey? Are you ready for this heat here? Come and get this heat. If the left one don't get you, then the other one will. Joe Biden. He's a superstar. He's doing really well, by the way. His campaign is just right on track. Saturday, went on the offensive Saturday. I feel like everything is inverted in this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the story isn't what Donald Trump did. And I love the fact that they're using a phone call that Trump made. So not only is the story Joe Biden, which he said himself he pressured to get the prosecutor fired in the Ukraine. We didn't have to tap his phones and leak a confidential conversation to do that. He just offered it up.
Yes.
So in order for them to spin the story back the other way, they're having to admit that they're leaking confidential phone calls from the president, which in of itself I find more troubling than just about anything. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's a certain level of security that needs to exist in the Oval Office.
I saw a tweet that proved CNN buried that information 22 paragraphs deep in their story, where the paragraph actually said that the whistleblower had no direct knowledge of the conversation and wasn't actually privy to the phone call that had about 50 people on the phone call, 25 of which from each country. It's in their fucking article that broke the story. Holy shit.
The whistle, there is no whistle is what you're telling me.
Yes.
There is no whistle.
Literally, the whistleblower is like a spy spying on the spies and had no direct knowledge. He'd only seen a transcript. Just think about that.
Wow. There you go. Well, I really don't want to get caught up on the whistleblower and the Hunter Biden angle, James, because that's really damaging to the Democrats. I think we really need to focus on the big story here. Trump is doing it again. He's doing it again. Donald Trump is asking a foreign country to help him win again. The president sought Russian aid in the 2016 election and got away with it. Now he's asking Ukraine to do the same thing, James. Never mind the known right-wing conspiracy website, The Hill. Never mind the known right-wing conspiracy website known as Vanity Fair. Never mind ABC, MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, ladies and gentlemen. This is all Donald Trump's doing. He's asking a foreign power to help him win. If anything, if we could take a cynical view, Donald Trump must be the first president in modern history who can work with both Russia and the Ukraine.
He deserves praise for that, if nothing else.
That's the Nobel Peace Prize right there, buddy.
There, he's got his name all over it. President Donald Trump had gotten off scot-free. A great day for me, he declared on July 24. Former special counsel Robert Mueller's testimony about Trump's... Have you noticed they've dropped Robert S. Mueller III? Now he's just Robert Mueller.
Yep.
Now he's just Bob. Old Bob Mueller.
Bob's your uncle.
Sounds like he could be... Yeah, it sounds like he could be working at a muffler place in San Diego, you know. Hey, good old Bob Mueller. His testimony about Trump's alleged obstruction of the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election had failed to convince House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, let alone congressional Republicans, to impeach him. With not one member of his circle in prison for attempting to collude with a foreign power, and with the prospect of impeachment rapidly fading thanks to Pelosi's hand-wringing and stonewalling, and I would just add, common sense. Nah, she's stonewalling. Now, maybe she works for Russia too, or the Ukraine. Who can keep up these days?
Who knows?
Who can keep up these days? Trump did what any rational leader would do. He apparently did it again. The day after Mueller's testimony, Trump called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and pressured Zelensky to help him win the 2020 election by investigating former President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, the Wall Street Journal reported Friday. In the weeks that followed, Trump refused to grant Zelensky a meeting at the White House and halted $250 million of congressionally authorized military aid to the country, which, I might add, is just 1/4 of the $1 billion that Joe Biden himself threatened to withdraw from the Ukraine. So it's still a better deal under Donald Trump, am I right?
Yeah.
This guy can't help but do deals. Raising the possibility that the president was, as the Washington Post put it in an unsigned editorial, not just soliciting Ukraine's help with his presidential campaign, but using U.S. military aid to extort it. Now he's extorting money. He's extorting the government of the Ukraine, James.
Jesus.
Well, so like we said, Joe Biden's doing really well on the campaign trail. He's kicking a lot of goals lately. He's the run-in with Corn Pop. These little rally events that Joe Biden is holding are must-view now. You have to watch them. You have to watch it because it's a slow-motion car wreck. It's a downward spiral, and I think everybody knows it. So how would you, James, if this story was bumbling along, if you're sticking your finger in reporters' faces, if you're saying there's no credible evidence for a thing that you admit that you did on television, like literally, like this isn't grab him by the pussy, oh, that's sexual assault. No. He literally said, yeah, well, I told that motherfucker from the Ukraine, you ain't getting your $1 billion unless you get rid of that guy, Corn Popovich. Right?
That's right.
So we're talking pretty much exactly the way he said it. So how would you address this crisis in this week, James? Would you perhaps get together with your media team, try to formulate an appropriate response, try to put oil on the fire, you know what I mean? Like try to cool it down. You don't want this thing going out of control. You don't want to look enraged. You don't want to look out of control. You know, just say, look, this stuff has been investigated. All of the information is available at the State Department. They were asking questions at the time, pretty routine stuff. But I think you'll find if you look into the story, we've really been open and honest with the whole process, and Hunter is doing the company's tremendously happy with the work that Hunter does. Bang, the story's over, right? Well, at least for a while. In theory, that's what should happen.
Or you could always
the way Joe.
I was going to say you could always do what Democrats normally do and just throw Justin Trudeau under the bus. Hey, at least I wasn't wearing blackface for the third time.
Well,
just completely go left.
The campaign is young. The campaign is young, James. So this is the way Joe Biden decided to change the narrative, and you'll be pleased to know we're back to 101 Democrat politics with this.
When Charlottesville occurred, and there were decent people standing there saying we will not go along with this hate, and he was asked when a young woman was killed, he was asked to characterize what happened. He said, quote, there were fine people on both sides.
Oh, that's the first time I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Wow. He's really, if he's nothing, James, if not original, Joe Biden. I think he's very out of the box thinker. Let's carry on.
No president. It's more than a boo. It's serious. No president
serious guys
has ever said anything like that, save the possibility before the Civil War. Ladies and
No president has ever said anything like that, save the possibility since before the Civil War, James. So he's likening Donald Trump to a pre-Civil War president now. You know, back in my day, I remember before the Civil War even happened. You know, the pre-Civil War presidents used to make all kinds of heinous remarks. Of course, back in those days, you could most definitely get away with it. I was a younger man back then, around 20 years of age, but I remember a lot of opposition to Abraham Lincoln's pronouncement that the country should be united. Of course, back in those days, you were allowed to criticize the people in the South without any too much blowback. Yes, myself and Ruth Bader Ginsburg used to party a lot down at the Milk Bar. You see, we used to go to the yogurt shop because back in those days, you didn't have nightclubs, you see. So we'd get ourselves a nice milkshake and we'd hold hands and walk down to the beach where, of course, there were no people swimming around in bikinis because back in those days, you wouldn't want to entice a young man away because they might take the pomade out of their hair. So you couldn't have that. It gets better.
gentlemen, in doing so, he has signed a moral equivalence between the neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klan, white supremacists, preaching hate and white supremacy, and those who are opposing it. At that time, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America. And we are in the battle for a soul of America. That's what's at stake.
Wow.
We're in a battle. We're in a battle for the soul of America, James. And here I was thinking we were just battling gang leaders over 3-meter diving boards. Oh, how times have changed. How the times have changed, James. How do you think this Hunter Biden story is going to wrap up for Joe? Is it going to go away?
No.
I can't see it going away.
No, it's not going away. No. It's definitely going to be at the top of the list. And to be honest with you, Hunter Biden may end up in jail when this is all said and done, because he himself has been on record as saying that he had talked to his dad, even though his dad says he hadn't talked to him. And if they could, it's possible. See, here's the deal. The State Department asked Donald Trump to ask the Ukrainian government to look at the Hunter Biden information. Now, if he committed a crime in Ukraine, guess who's in charge of allowing Hunter Biden to be extradited?
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Oh, maybe I should quit pissing on Trump's leg. I don't know.
You know, Joe, I'd really like to let your son off, but as you very well know, we're in a fight for the soul of the nation. So people are really angry about potential corruption these days, Joe. So I'd really like to let Hunter have a free pass. But I think you would agree the American people demand justice, Joe. So sorry. So sorry about that. Somebody else had some things to say about this whole Hunter Biden affair before we move on, James. It's one of our favorites. Yeah, we're going to get the sound. It's going to speed up right at the end for some reason. It's doing that lock-up thing. There he goes.
Let's try that again.
It still makes more sense than Brian in real life.
That's true.
The Weekly Stellar.
Confusion is in the air right now. This time, it's not because of Russian hackers. It's not a bot army waging information warfare on Facebook. This time, the person leading a disinformation campaign is President Trump.
Now, see, this is the kind of shit I really love, and this is the kind of shit I get excited about, because we've talked before, haven't we, James, about the rhetorical chess that Donald Trump plays with these people. Now, Brian Stelter is now going to have to admit that the disinformation being spread by Donald Trump is the shit that his own network was reporting 6 months ago. The New York Times, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, The Hill, Vanity Fair, the whole lot, the whole gang was writing about this. And Donald Trump now repeating what they were saying is a disinformation campaign. Do you believe it?
Wow.
He is confusing the public and telling people that his political opponents are dirty. He's going on a Twitter storm.
Pride. He's repeating your stories. He's tweeting out your reporting. He's confusing the public by proxy since you're confusing the public then. Now you have to come out and say that everything you said about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden was wrong. Like, just like that. But they don't do that, right? They don't do that.
All weekend long, smashing the media and Democrats while smearing this whistleblower that we still don't know much about.
So smashing the media and Democrats. If anything, he was promoting you.
Hold
He's
on.
promoting you.
I want to know how he smeared the whistleblower by telling the media, oh, please build it up bigger, because your fall will be even more massive when you find out what's really going on. Like, please, he's begging you, Bri, please, Bri, go on CNN and build this up to the heavens, because when you figure out what's really going on, it's going to be beautiful.
It seems he's backed into a corner on this issue involving Ukraine, which we're going to get into in detail. This was first reported days ago by the Washington Post.
No. See, it wasn't first reported days ago by the Washington Post. It was first reported months ago by the New York Times. Like, we just read the blurb.
Yes.
We just read the article. So, this story is about a week old from the same people who were saying it 6 months ago. Like, they must think we're all fucking goldfish.
Yep.
Like, this is people like Brian Stelter like to talk about. I mean, he tweeted out something earlier before, and I nearly shit my pants laughing so hard. He tweeted out that Donald Trump is going around. Donald Trump said that the American media is the joke of the world. And this is a terribly irresponsible thing for the president to say. And I laugh because I'm like, even Brian doesn't have the balls to come out and say it's not true. You know what I mean? Usually every single tweet from Donald Trump, like, is it up on Snopes yet? Maybe it's up on Snopes. And even Snopes, I suspect, when it says Donald Trump's claim is the American media is the laughing stock of the world, they're going to have to say mostly true. You know what I mean? They'll say mostly true. Everybody except Snopes. Everybody else, everybody laughs at him.
Troubling phone call, a promise Trump made to the Ukrainian leader.
Yeah.
All of this, of course, leading the news, but his media allies are rushing to Trump's side.
The media. Now it's time for the media allies, James.
This is a punk.
Oh, Geraldo Riviera, big fan of Trump, is he? Since when? It's news to me. Anyway.
A punk who's snitching.
Someone that's part of the deep state.
Spying on the president of the United States. The Trump whistleblower may not be a whistleblower at all.
That's the rhetoric. That's what's happening on the right.
That's not rhetoric. That's not rhetoric.
That was reported by CNN. Hold on. It gets better. It's not rhetoric, Bri. CNN in 20 paragraphs deep in your article said that the whistleblower had no direct knowledge. What the fuck do you want, Bri? Oh, my God.
See, in order to frame this as the president is pushing disinformation, Brian Stelter is citing Fox News, who is citing CNN. Isn't it fucking wonderful? Let's go back on the campaign trail with Grandpa Joe. Again, trying to steer the discussion back towards how well he's doing on the campaign, James, and his great ideas for should he become the president. Oh, wait, where's my audio? Where's my bloody audio here? All right, let's try this again.
So many of them. And so, yes, and by the way, in prison, the determination should be that your sexual identity is defined by what you say it is, not what, in fact, the prison says it is. And in that case, you should be entitled also to OGBYN. Anyway, you didn't ask that question.
He's really passionate about the subject, isn't he? Did you hear that?
back in my day.
I pointed out, like, let's just. I tweeted this out on Twitter too, and I pointed out, like, this is either a fast track to solitary confinement or it's a new type of brothel where, hey, if you're a little bit lonely, you'll just go ahead and say, hey, I feel pretty, oh so pretty. Go over to the women's prison for a vacation and then just change your identity back when you're done. I mean, just think about that. It's Rape-A-Rama.
Now, I love the fact that Joe is so in touch with mainstream society. Joe's really got his finger on the pulse when it comes to, the sensible middle, James. Because when Julian Castro came out and said that we need to give abortions to trans women, Joe Biden said to himself, that's not going far enough. And I just love in that clip, you can tell he's really passionate about LGBTQ issues because he called them LBYs. LBY, well, whatever the hell you didn't even ask that. Listen, do you want to hear it again? Right, he just trails off. Again, it's another old man moment from Joe, because you know how old guys just trail off with their stories and they have no real ending? And then I took my car to the garage and the brake pedals. What about the brake pedals, Grandad? What about the brake pedals? Why
are we talking about brake pedals?
I don't remember you asking a question. I don't remember. What time is dinner anyway? If I don't eat by 4 o'clock, my blood sugar gets dangerously low.
It says it is. And in that case, you should be entitled also to OGBYN. Anyway.
OBGYN. That's what he said. Wait. The OBGYN. What the hell is that? Wine.
The OBGYN. Is that prison hooch? You should be entitled to that shit. You should be entitled to that wine that they make in prison toilets.
Hey, I want to see the first OBGYN that tries to give the transitioning person a pap smear.
Oh yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen. Yeah, you'll be. And an OBGYN, and well, you didn't even ask about that, though, did you? The person up on stage was like, "Please, Joe, stop being unreasonable." If Brian Stelter and Joe Biden had their way, though, you know how they like to say that everything comes from Fox News, James?
Yes.
Well, I've found a great article here from the New York Times, perhaps highlighting a potential run in 2024. Tucker Carlson, 2024. And there's Tucker as the Terminator. Yeah, this is the New York Times. This is the New York Times. I tried to imagine a president worse than Trump. Welcome to my nightmare. Presidents these days always seem to get worse, don't they? To many on the left, Donald Trump is an order of magnitude more disastrous a commander-in-chief than was George W. Bush, whose reputation now stands thoroughly rehabilitated in the popular culture. Bush is no longer the incurious man who launched an unnecessary war that killed hundreds of thousands. He did get elected twice, though. Can I just stress that? Like, I'm not sure he was ever as unpopular as the media made him out to be. Like, I don't even really particularly like the guy, but I'm pretty sure that he was pretty popular. You know what I mean? Yeah. Today, he's the goofy old fella who paints portraits of the troops, pals around with Michelle Obama. I reckon he's less popular now than he was when he was president.
That's true.
If anything.
That's definitely
and
true.
And seems to be in on the joke of our times. Sort of makes me look pretty good, doesn't it? Bush has been reported to smirk about the Trump era. For the record, I think the jury is still out on whether Trump is worse than Bush, but for most of 2019, I've been trying to picture a future that elevates Trump in the same way it did Bush. How much worse could this all get? And worse in what direction, James? What politics, policies, rhetoric, and media mastery will be the next extremely terrible President Marshall to ruin America anew? So they're admitting that Donald Trump has media mastery, ironically, as they're writing a post about how bad Donald Trump is in the media, which is interesting in of itself.
In short, what sort of character do we have to imagine occupying the White House in 2029 to make lefties like myself feel even a slight pang of nostalgia for the good old days of Donald J. Trump?
Hang on,
the thought experiment is.
Did you just say
the thought experiment is? Sorry, go ahead.
Does the article just say how to make lefties feel good in 2029? So have they already conceded the 2024 election as well?
It appears so.
It appears so. This is the 12-second goldfish writer right here. He doesn't remember what the fuck he wrote in the last paragraph. You're like, what? Sorry, I got a deadline. What?
Wait, who's the president? Who's the president? Wait, where am I? Where am I? What office is this? What's my name again? Oh, okay. The thought experiment is instructive because it compels us to ponder some of the fundamental forces shaping American culture and politics at the moment. It is also horrifying because what quickly becomes evident is that we might now be only in the middle of everything spinning out of control. The eye of the storm, James. Come, take a stroll with me, the author continues, through my recurrent nightmare. It's the sweltering summer of 2029. The man in charge is Tucker Carlson. That is President Tucker Carlson. The one-time Fox News talker turned righteous white nationalist economic populist. Now in his triumphant second term, after having defeated the incumbent Joseph Recession Joe Biden back in 2024. So they think Biden's going to win in 2024, which is interesting. Like Trump, President Carlson spends his first term refashioning America along racial lines. But unlike Trump, whose one term is now regarded by much of the right as the best forgotten political disaster, Carlson advocates an ethno-nationalist populism that succeeds in a wild and frightening fashion. It's almost like they couldn't make Donald Trump out to be the reckless, racist, Nazi, ethno-fascist that they would like him to be. So now we have to write about the next president who's going to be an ethno-nationalist Nazi. And that'll be a reason not to vote for the Republicans in 8 years' time.
Why did they choose Tucker Carlson, who arguably, like most of us would say, he's very left compared to everybody else? Why would they choose him?
He's a libertarian at best.
At best.
Pretty liberal on some issues.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. There's been some times I've heard him say, we need better social policies. And I've looked at him like, what the hell did you just say? Are you a liberal?
They go into, do you want to know his secret for how he wins in 2029, James? Tucker Carlson? His secret, the author writes, competence, a commitment to true political realignment, and a brutal online political machine that represents the full flowering of the tactics and ideology first displayed during 2014's Gamergate movement. He's talking about trolling.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Tucker Carlson, commander-in-chief of the online trolls. Imagine Tucker Carlson just invites 4chan to the White House for a dinner. It's going to be great. Everybody will just be wearing Pepe masks. When Trump was a chaotic, undisciplined narcissist, the Carlson who wins in 2024 is a canny political strategist who makes good on Trump's forgotten promise to embrace anti-corporate economic policies. On paper, parts of Carlson's agenda seem ripped from the former liberal firebrand Senator Elizabeth Warren. His chief enemies are Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft, the mega corporations owned and staffed by wealthy liberals. It's a winning electoral formula. A large minority of Americans are willing to forgive Carlson's authoritarian nativist impulses if they see it as part of a war against the out-of-touch, culture-destroying corporations that are automating our jobs, killing every other industry, and exercising complete control over what we watch, read, listen to, buy, and believe. If they are exercising complete control over what we watch, read, listen to, buy, and believe, how does Tucker Carlson get elected?
Exactly. How does this happen? This is like I think what this writer did is he said, fuck, I've got a deadline. I've got to write something. You know what? 1984. That book sold a lot. How about I just take 1984 and I'll insert modern day characters and I got it. Tucker Carlson. Yeah, that's the ticket. We'll make Tucker Carlson this Terminator-like 1984 figure. That'll sell newspapers. I swear to God, like if you could pull this story directly out of a George Orwell type fucking, War of the Worlds manuscript. I can't even follow what the hell this guy was trying to say.
Well, if Tucker Carlson isn't the man for the job, then maybe another kind of racist is, and that would be Justin Trudeau. Now, I need to put out a caveat, and I'm pretty sure that James would agree. Neither of us really particularly give a fuck about blackface. Is that fair?
Yeah, fair.
Like, we don't care.
Oh, dude, did you see, really quick, though, did you see Terrence Williams doing whiteface the other day?
No.
Oh, my fucking God! Okay, everybody right now, remember this. Go to Terrence Williams' timeline on Twitter. He does whiteface over Justin Trudeau's blackface. And he's got a blonde wig on and white makeup on. And he's talking like Spicoli. He's like, dude, Justin, this is not cool. I can't even show my face at work now. I have to look down. Dude, it's so fucking hilarious.
He's a funny little fucker. Well, this is a good article. I thought you'd enjoy this because how do you spin this, right? How do you spin this if you're a Liberal in Canada weeks away from a pivotal election where the Conservatives are now polling ahead of the Liberal Party in Canada? What's the spin? In order to get it away from Justin, so there's the obvious ones, Conservatives pounce, right? So Conservatives pounce on new pictures of Justin Trudeau. They're just trying to score political points, blah, 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 blah. But the other way that you have to get the focus off Justin, and you have to get it back to core issues. And the core issue is Justin's not that bad because the whole country is racist. Oh, yes. Don't be too angry at Justin Trudeau. You're all racists too, okay? Trudeau's blackface exposes the truth. Canada is no racial heaven, James. So they haven't gone progressive enough. We need to do more. For Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, blackface is a mere obstacle to overcome in his campaign run after receiving rebukes this week for, quote, darkening his face several times in the past. So that's all it is. It's just a hurdle in a campaign rally. I'm thinking, great. That means nobody should get upset about it anymore, if that's all it is. If that's how important it is, it doesn't sound like it's very important to me. If you say it's just a campaign hurdle to overcome. But for the millions of black, Indigenous and other people of colour in Canada, this is far more than a simple scandal. Blackface is a reminder that people of colour are still considered to be characters instead of equal and full human beings. To be fair, I've seen Justin Trudeau wear the cultural garb of at least 20 peoples. So he pretty much considers everybody to be a character, and Justin Trudeau plays many characters. I mean, we open up the show talking Indian. I'm surprised Justin Trudeau wasn't over there with Modi as well, because he'd be wearing the full fucking Singh outfit. You know what I mean? He'd be wearing the full Sikh. He's done it before.
Yeah.
To put on, there's pictures of him out there. I'm sure you can find it if you look. To put on blackface is to be contemptuous of other people's pain, to take on the appearance of one's skin, but none of the suffering endured as a result of racism makes a mockery of our experiences. It demeans who we are as people. And the infuriating reality is Canada's denial of its own racism. See, we've only mentioned Trudeau in the first sentence of the article. That's it. Now we've just slipped it in there. Canada's denial of its own racism, the very same racism present in the overwhelmingly white elite and privileged spheres where Trudeau apparently learned that blackface was acceptable, makes it impossible to change it in any meaningful way. There you go. It's Canada's fault.
Yeah. Was that when he was the drama major, or when he was the drama teacher that he learned that blackface was perfectly acceptable, which we both agree actually is? But I've got this breaking news for you that there is an election tie here to Joe Biden again. just to put that out there, Justin Trudeau, aka Corn Pop. So maybe that's who Joe Biden was imagining taking his chain to the rusty razor blade of. It's a ridiculous story to begin with, but the reason that it's value is because it points to just pure hypocrisy of the left. It's just you literally have Canadians excusing the liberal side and completely excusing that it's perfectly fine for Trudeau to do the same behavior that they say proves all white people are racist. Wait, what? How does that prove all white people are racist, but not the liberal white people? Only all the other people. But if you're liberal, it's not racist. Wait, what? What the hell is going on here?
And the reason that that's important is because that's all you'll see from the surrogates, right? The surrogates are the ones, because they're trying desperately to hang on to the votes that they've got, because they're sliding in the polls and the Conservatives are gaining in the polls, James. But the reason, people would say, oh, don't make a big thing out of it because blackface isn't a big thing. And I get that. But the reason why it's valuable to, highlight this is not so much the hypocrisy for me. It's for the people who genuinely do care. And so they're not trying to convince conservatives here.
Right.
The reason that you keep this in the news cycle, if you're a conservative in Canada, is not to convince conservatives of anything. It's to just show it's more and more liberals, James, who turn around and say, wait, the media is saying this is okay. That's bullshit. Fuck the media.
Yeah.
Because once you break that first wall, right? Once you break through that fuck the media wall, then you can start talking about a whole range of shit. Because right now the media has a lock on people's minds, and sometimes it only takes one thing, and then the whole belief system can tumble like a house of cards. You know what I mean? As long as you knock the right brick out of the Jenga game, the whole tower comes crumbling down. And this might be it. For the people who have been watching the media, believing the media, and then see the people in the media that they've trusted for years and years turn around and say, hey, don't get upset about blackface. The real problem is you. You're the racist here. Go out and vote for Trudeau. They might just turn around and say, oh, fuck this.
Thank you. Yeah, and what is the mission of Tab Show throughout all of this time is PC culture must die. Absolutely, Tina nails it over there on YouTube. Political correctness culture, PC culture must die. That's right. We must stab it to death.
So how do you PC spin an un-PC thing for a PC guy, James? How do you manage to do that?
I love it.
How do you manage to make blackface PC because it's a PC guy who was doing blackface? Well, you work for CNN and then you say this.
Moments ago, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau publicly apologizing for a series of racist photos.
Oh, come on now.
And a video showing him wearing dark face makeup.
Dark face makeup? That's how you PC it up. Don't mention blackface. Do not mention the B word. It's just dark face makeup, guys.
Trudeau publicly apologizing for a series of racist photos and a video showing him wearing dark face makeup. That video shows Trudeau in the early 90s. It was obtained by CNN partner Global News. A reporter received the video from a source within Canada's Conservative Party. Now, Trudeau, of course, is part of the Liberal Party. National elections just weeks away. The photo that ignited all of this is this one you see here, taken in 2001.
See, look, even Time magazine in that tweet, Trudeau wore brown face at 2001 Arabian Nights.
Yeah. Just change the language.
Not blackface.
This is what the left loves. Just change the language. It's okay. We have to redefine definitions so they fit into our liberal culture.
Interestingly, though, it looks as though the rumors that we've heard about white liberal women in Canada are true. They do prefer black guys. So Justin Trudeau, very scientific there. Thank you so much for that, Justin. Do you want to talk about culture, James? Culture is very important.
I absolutely. Let me show this real quick because this is an ad in Montreal. Look at that. Look at that. Someone put that up down there in downtown Canada. Gotta love it. Absolutely. Let's talk culture.
There was a great comment in the chat from the General Eaton, James. If you're not familiar with this meme, then it won't make much sense to you. He said Islam is right about Trudeau. So if you don't know about those signs that have been going up in Boston, then that's not going to make much sense to you. But learn about it. Let's talk culture, James. Would you say that Hollywood for the longest time has been, would you say, at the forefront of the culture wars, perhaps steering us down certain avenues and alleyways and rabbit holes and maybe pushing our society, broader society, in certain directions or helping nudge them along? Would that be a fair statement to make, do you think?
Absolutely fair.
Okay. What happens when the latest Rambo movie comes out, though? From Salon, the MAGA fever dream of Rambo Last Blood. Right-wing Rambo propaganda is alive and well in Last Blood, James. Right-wing propaganda in Rambo. Hey, yo, Adrian, build the fucking wall, all right? Yeah. Rambo Last Blood, in the latest in the long-running franchise about a traumatized war veteran turned on demand badass, is less than escapist action movie and more of a dramatized manifestation of the most notorious sentences from Donald Trump's presidential campaign announcement speech. They just see Trump in everything, don't they? They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Even for a series that has always been shaped by a right-wing worldview, James, the only reason for this latest sequel to exist, besides generating profits from die-hard Stallone fans, is to validate MAGA world bigotries about Mexicans. See, Hollywood, you're only allowed to make certain kinds of movies now. You're only allowed. If somebody criticizes some kind of Mexican cartel in a Rambo movie, now you're just propping up Donald Trump's propaganda, James. It's insane. When New York Times film critic Janet Maslin reviewed the original movie in the series, 1982's First Blood, she noted that Vietnam is to First Blood as rape was to Death Wish. It's the excuse for a rampage of destruction. She later added that the movie tries hard to make sure that Rambo will be seen as a tormented, misunderstood, amazingly resourceful victim of the Vietnam War rather than as a sadist or a villain. All of this is true, but with a sinister twist. The film repeatedly perpetuates right-wing myths about America's treatment of Vietnam War veterans. Didn't you know?
What?
Yeah. The left loved the veterans, James. The left loved the Vietnam War guys when they got home. They loved them. Big fans.
So they were actually taking the Chinese approach to the spitting on them. When you spit on someone in China, apparently that's a compliment. It's not that wasn't a downgrading. That they must have spun that somehow in their head.
The movie, James, the author continues, it makes valid points about PTSD and institutional indifference to veterans' health, but focuses on the idea that America is full of ingrates who can't appreciate the idealized Nietzschean hyper-masculine men that supposedly represent everything noble about this country. When the protagonist goes... There's too much there's toxic masculinity in the Rambo movie. Jesus Christ. When the protagonist goes on a rampage, it is morally justified by how he was persecuted by small-town cops, and his persecution is brought on by a sadism rooted not in truth, but in right-wing myths about America that allow its audiences to root for someone who would otherwise be seen as contemptible. There you go. If it wasn't for Donald, this is the key takeaway. If it wasn't for Donald Trump being president, you would all hate Rambo. Yes. Speaking of Hollywood propaganda, James, because we really dislike any kind of political messaging in stuff that comes out from Hollywood. Let me introduce you to the new rebooted edition of Party of Five. Do you remember Party of Five?
Not at all.
Okay, that's the show where Jennifer Love Hewitt got her start and a couple of other child actors that nobody cares about anymore. It was basically a family of 5 children growing up without their parents, right? So the older brother and sister would take care of the younger ones. So in the reboot version, though, It's 5 children taking care of themselves without their parents. Why? Because the parents have been deported back to Mexico because they were illegal immigrants. See, we hate political messaging in Hollywood stuff, though. We've established that, right? We can't stand political messaging in Hollywood. It's not fair. That's not what it's about. It's just about telling inspiring stories. Let's have a look.
I need to see your papers. I don't have any papers. All right, come.
Don't take my daddy!
No. I would point this out.
Don't take my daddy away!
I would point this out. Right away, I've only heard literally one sentence of this show, and you can already tell that they're fucking Nazis! Where's your papers? Nazis! I mean, Americans don't talk like that. There's no cop on the planet that asks for your papers. That's not what they say. They say, can I see your ID, please? This is what cops do. Fuck me.
Mein Herr, please to be showing me your identification papers. Please, mein Herr.
My hands are tied. The former ruling stands.
No. A story more relevant than ever.
Time's up. Let's go.
Oh, there's the kid. There's the children in cages. Yes. 14 seconds into the trailer. So we've hit all the high notes already. We hate propaganda.
I love you, mijo. I love you. Tienes que ser fuerte, mijo.
You have to be strong, my son.
Don't go to the dark side.
Freedom, and it's for the Freedom Network, by the way. The Freedom Network.
My brother's failing school. My sister.
Oh wait, Freeform.
Who used to be perfect. Is so angry at the world, and I don't know how to make that better. See ya!
See, when my parents were here, before they got deported back to Mexico, it was a perfect family. Now the kids are doing drugs. She's slutting around at college parties and stuff. It's just awful.
My little sister's gonna need a bra any day now without a mom to get her through that. And the baby.
I'm gonna have to buy my little sister a bra, James.
Yes, thrush, and I don't know if it's something I did. I'm telling you, I won't be good enough.
I'm required to report those concerns to social services.
They're gonna split us up.
Mommy and Poppy managed with a lot less than what we have, but they figured it out. So will we.
Now we're moving forward. Yeah.
Now we're moving forward, yeah.
Never backwards, never.
We're moving. Very inspiring lyrics going into the soundtrack here. Because now we're moving forward, yeah. Never backwards, never backwards. Because you know what they always say about conservatives, right? They say, you know, if you elect another conservative, they're going to undo all the progress that we've achieved. We need to move forwards, not backwards. They're looking backwards. We're looking forwards.
Saben cómo cuidarse entre ellos.
When the going is rough and life is tough.
How do you know? I just do.
Don't forget to breathe.
There you go. The new Party of Five. I know everybody's going to be lining up waiting to watch that.
I don't even know what the network
people getting
is.
arrested by ICE. Sorry, James.
I don't even know what the fuck that network is that it's appearing on. I mean, what is this thing? Is this on UHF TV? I mean, I don't even know if we still have that.
I got no idea.
Is this a straight to DVD type release?
I shan't be seeking it out. One more story, perhaps. Well, 2 more stories before we get to the hammering, James. We've been going for a while now. This is fantastic, but for one very specific reason that I'm only going to tell you at the end. Corey Lewandowski, Stephen Miller, and the wages of contempt in Trump world. As odious as Trump's minions like Lewandowski and Miller are, there's an upside. They'd be nothing without him. One of the worst side effects of the Trump's presidency is the unleashing upon the world of these squinty-eyed, shaved-head, pissy little monsters. Yes, pissy little monsters. Like, someone sounds a little bit salty. Someone sounds a little bit bitchy. Rare. Yeah. that quote again. What? This is fantastic. I just love genuine objective reporting.
God, I love Salon.
Aren't they the best? One of the worst side effects of the Trump presidency is the unleashing upon the world of these squinty-eyed, shaved-head, pissy little monsters like Corey Lewandowski and Stephen Miller. providing them a platform where they can spread their hatred of and contempt for decency and democracy and all things right, and just well beyond their lonely basements and bedrooms where they had to heretofore be confined. Guys like them have always been with us. You can probably recall running across one or two of them in a civics high school class or college, shooting their sweaty palms into the air from the back row, trying to be recognized so they could challenge one liberal shibboleth or another. Never seen that word before. They were never included in the gang that passed a football or tossed a frisbee around the quad. Okay, so they're not one of the boys, James. They're not one of the crew. After classes, nobody invited them out to go for a beer after the game or to drop by the common room to hang out and order pizza. People didn't pay enough attention to them to learn their names until a toxic stew of right-wing politics and Donald Trump loosed them upon us. And then suddenly they were all over our public life, or perhaps worse still, were not on your television screens, which meant that they were somewhere in the bowels of the White House or loping around K Street in pinstripes as a lobbyist, executing the evil plans of the Koch brothers or white supremacist thinkers like Richard Spencer. So the argument here is, James, that these are kind of nerdy basement-dwelling guys who weren't popular. They weren't good at sports, okay? Nobody really liked them. So you would think that this is coming from a particularly, like, blue-collar kind of writer, yeah? This would be like a very blue guy. Hey, they're not one of us. They're not one of the guys. The girls didn't get to play football. They didn't get invited out for a beer. The girls wouldn't fuck them. These are like the lowest of the low. These pissy, what was it? Squinty-eyed, shaved head, pissy little monsters. Okay? Now, I would never normally do this, but it's at this point, and specifically this point, I would like to draw your attention to the name of the guy who wrote this article, and that name is Lucian K. Truscott IV. Lucian K. Truscott IV, James.
The fourth, yes. This is a pissy little shithead that played lacrosse. That's all he is. Look,
he probably had a car service when he was 13. You know what I mean?
You have to absolutely love Salon. Like, for us, Salon is like The Onion, only better. Like, The Onion could probably take Salon articles and do very little work and just print them, and it would be fantastic. Like, you would come up with some of the funniest shit ever. Here's a guy that's literally talking about basically calling these guys nerds, right? He's saying, fuck the nerds. Wait. I thought the left were the ones that were saying, guys, you have to stick up for the nerds. It's the jocks that are bad. Wait, so who's fucking bad? Are the nerds bad or are the jocks bad? How can they both be bad? Just everybody's bad. Okay, gotcha.
Everybody. You know, those guys. You know, those gentlemen over there probably never felt a breast. They were never invited out to play hockey or other manly sports like croquet or polo like the rest of us. And I, Lucian K. Truscott IV, have declared them to be basement-dwelling, squinty-eyed, shaved-head, pissy little monsters. Very unpopular with the ladies.
One more article here before we get to the hammering, James. This will lead right into the hammering. Thought this was interesting. Running up the score in House races could deliver White House to the Democrats. Actually, just incidentally, you said how much we love Salon. It's true, we do. I got another one. It's like a WhatsApp kind of app, but it's not WhatsApp. It's like it. And I had to prove, I messaged my pal, and he had to ask me a question to prove that it was really me. And I didn't know he was going to do it, by the way. I didn't know he was asking me a test question.
He had to prove you were you in order for an app to work. You know what the fuck is going on in the world? Now you can no longer verify yourself. A third party must verify that you exist in the real world. Wow.
Well, he determined my identification by asking me this question, James, which took me completely by surprise. He said, what is the most unintentionally funny publication on the internet? And I wrote back Salon, and he said, hi, Boogie. Damn straight. Reps Ron Kind from Wisconsin, Rashida Tlaib from Michigan have little in common. Kind is a 12-term veteran of Congress, a leader of the Democratic caucus's moderate wing. Tlaib is an unabashed liberal in a self-proclaimed squad of young first-term Democrats. Neither Democrat shows up on anyone's radar for key battlegrounds next year, but both their districts are critical to the broader outcome in 2020. That's one of the key findings of an intensive report by Third Way, a centre-left think tank that analysed 235 districts held by House Democrats to look at where the fault lines were, not just for the House, but also the Senate majority and the presidency in next year's elections. The result is a portrait of the Democratic coalition, from the rural edge of Kind's western Wisconsin district to the inner city neighborhoods of Tlaib's Detroit-based district, that shows a path to victory at every level of power in Washington. Kind, for example, sits in a district that flipped from supporting Barack Obama in 2012 to backing Donald Trump in 2016, a year in which Wisconsin narrowly sided with GOP nominee, and poor turnout in Tlaib's hometown helped Trump put Michigan in his win column. Even as Kind 56 and Tlaib 43 presumably cruise to re-election next year, the margins they run up might prove decisive to their state's critical total of 26 electoral votes. This is why this stuff is interesting. This is a little bit of insight to what the play is here from the Democrats. And maybe they're playing small ball, right? Instead of going for the big prize. Maybe this would explain why certain people are pushing the racism agenda to motivate certain fringe elements in certain key districts, which they know they're going to win, but they need that total vote for the state to go up by maybe only 20,000 in places like Michigan, right?
Yes.
They have the potential to help boost or deflate the 2020 Democratic presidential nominee, a sign of how Democrats need to push to get every vote possible next year. Just focusing on one thing is not going to be enough. You need all of it. David De La Fuente, the author of the Third Way Report, said in an interview, he mapped out which seats are key to victories that will enable Democrats to retain the House majority as well as win back the Senate and the presidency. In all, De La Fuente's report focused on 99 House districts that had at least one of 5 attributes, okay? The 43 freshman Democrats who flipped a Republican seat in 2018, any Democrat whose margin of victory last year was in single digits, the 31 districts that Trump won in 2016, any seat in a presidential battleground, and any seat in a state with a key Senate race. Third Way created in the new Democrat mold of Bill Clinton's presidency often clashes with more liberal activists over party ideology. But in this report, the group has tried to illustrate the range of political geography Democrats need to focus their energy on in order to ensure a broad victory. So, here's why. In 2016, Tlaib's district gave Hillary Clinton a margin of victory of almost 61 percentage points, which might seem staggering, but 4 years earlier, that district gave Obama a nearly 71-point margin. Trump won Michigan by fewer than 11,000 votes, making that small drop in Detroit critical to Clinton's defeat statewide. Okay? This is why we say it's not really about, like, you can easily get lost in big numbers, and you can see, like, 60 million votes, right? Or 55 million votes. And you can think that it's not really important. But in order to flip an election, like you're talking about 11,000 votes throughout a state, if a handful of people in each district in those city centers, like in Detroit, went out and voted, Donald Trump doesn't win Michigan. Like, that's how close it is. So we can talk about, it's forward momentum and positive thinking and stuff. But again, these people employ people and put them on vast sums of money in salary to do this kind of maths, to figure it out. And, like I've mentioned before, former Prime Minister, second longest serving Prime Minister in Australian history, John Howard, once famously said, winning elections is less about ideology and more about mathematics.
Right.
And he won enough of them to know. Down in North Carolina, Rep. Butterfield has easily won for 15 years, but the former chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus has a district that might be key to tipping the state's 15 electoral votes to Democrats, apparently. Perhaps more importantly, Butterfield could help the Democratic nominee for the Senate race against Senator Thom Tillis, a contest that could serve as a tipping point for control of the Senate. Without a comprehensive effort, Democrats fear a new president would be stymied if Republicans still control the Senate, where the GOP could block or water down the Democratic agenda, similar to Obama's second term. So do you see where they're targeting? They're not going to be targeting. I don't think they're going to target Texas. I think we're looking at, obviously, like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, but then other places like North Carolina, which you wouldn't think would flip, right? But they're not going to be targeting the state necessarily. They might be targeting North Carolina for the Senate race rather than the presidential race.
They're targeting
to cover their bases another way.
The same thing we've been saying. They're targeting the metropolitan areas. That's the key, right? It's the key to winning every state is you got to target the largest population. Because remember, although the electoral college is how you win a presidential election, inside each state it is a majority vote win. So you don't have that same thing where in the presidential race where you have like this district won and that district won. There's no most states, there's no internal electoral college in the state, right? So you have to make sure you carry the state. And you're right. We've been talking about this on Trust and Verify forever about how the math plays out, what the districts are that are being targeted. They're absolutely going to target the same districts and then try to gain a few and pick off on the fringes. Like, why is North Carolina winnable? Because of Charlotte. I mean, like, literally, that's why it's winnable, is because of Charlotte. So you have to pay attention to some of these things. And when you see NASCAR, did you just hear me say Charlotte? When you hear NASCAR is going anti-Second Amendment, what does that tell you about Charlotte in North Carolina, the home of NASCAR?
Yep.
What does that tell you is going on in that state, in that district, in that area? Why in the fuck would NASCAR be separating itself from the Second Amendment? That's telling you right there, Charlotte is a problem. So if you're not paying attention and you're in politics, you should be. The same thing is that, Michigan, right? That's why Detroit is such a winning thing for us. I think we're going to win Detroit, to be honest with you. Why? Because there's been no president in decades that's done more for Detroit than Donald Trump. In fact, it's been big news. He's fought even with the unions to help them get their jobs for the unions. So he's winning the union worker. He's winning the United Auto Workers Union. He's definitely going to carry, in my opinion, Detroit. But we got to fight for it. We have to realize that it's infinitely losable as well.
Here's an interesting one for you. Now, pardon me. I wonder how many people out there have heard of a guy named Jared Golden. Who's heard of Jared Golden? Have you heard of Jared Golden, James?
No.
Okay. Why is Jared Golden important? He's running for the Senate in Maine, okay? Now, if you go back to pre-midterm elections, you'll remember on this show, and I don't remember too many other people who were talking about what the Democrats were doing. And we were eventually vindicated because the Democrats, the races that we were highlighting on this show as problem races for the Republicans are the ones that the Democrats won.
Yeah.
And we were pointing out the point here that the Democrats were being very smart in who they were pre-selecting. They were pre-selecting people that would appeal to the majority, right? And would appeal to Republican sensibilities in swinging districts or districts that they previously held in the Obama era. And we're talking about veterans or business owners, right? Now, listen to this. Jared Golden is running in Maine. Golden carries even more value because Maine allocates some of its electoral votes based on performance within congressional districts, allowing Trump to claim an extra vote for winning the northern Maine district despite losing narrowly statewide. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
Read that again.
So there you go.
Because I can't read it.
So Golden's running in Maine, okay?
Right.
Golden carries even more value because Maine allocates some of its electoral votes based on performance within congressional districts, allowing Trump to claim an extra vote for winning the northern Maine district despite losing narrowly statewide.
Yep, I remember that.
So he got like a bonus. He got a bonus vote.
After he'd already won the election by 75,000 electoral votes. I remember there's big news stories about who was going to get that one extra vote. Yeah.
Right. But listen to this guy. Listen to who they're putting up. If Golden, a Marine veteran from Iraq and Afghanistan, Democrat in Maine, a Marine veteran from Iraq and Afghanistan can win next year by a sizable margin, he could secure the state for the Democratic nominee and also help knock off Senator Susan Collins in another critical race. So then you lose a senator as well. So you get that extra electoral college vote and you lose the senator at the same time. So I just find it interesting that they're not stupid. There's a myth out there that the Democrats are stupid, and it's fun to say that they are. But you wouldn't want to make the mistake. It's not for me to say because I'm not even an American. I can't vote or anything. But one thing that you learn pretty quickly is don't repeat the same mistakes that were made against you in 2016 when they underrated you and what you could do and what Trump could do.
That's right.
Because there might be a lot of people doing the exact same thing here and then taking their eye off the prize. It's not just about one thing. It's not just about the White House here. It's about what everybody does in their area. It's about where all of these people are voting and what states are voting and how the states are going and how the congressional races are going. The Senate races are important because in 2018, James, most of the Senate seats up were Democrats, right? That's different this time. Now, this time, most of them are Republicans.
Right.
And they're now Republicans in states that have gone more marginally towards the Democrats in 2018 than they were in 2016. So they might not even care if they get Donald Trump out of the White House. But if they flip, 3 Senate seats or 4 Senate seats?
Yeah.
Then bang,
we got
presidency over.
Yeah.
Presidency over. You'll be a lame duck president just like Obama was.
It's all about the Senate, guys. It's always about the Senate, but we're going to take it all this time. We're going for everything. Like the president has a global strategy here that we're going to win on every level, but we're not going to waste resources pumping them into certain places. And let me give you an example of actually not a wasted resource, but a very good thing. Today, the president was in Houston at a rally with the Prime Minister Modi of India. And I want to point out a staggering statistic. 50,000 people were in Houston to see the president and Modi. And they were primarily Indian in nature that were there. Indian Americans. 50,000 to see these guys talk. And I want to point this very staggering statistic out. 600 million people voted for Prime Minister Modi. You just heard that number correct. 600 million people voted for Prime Minister Modi. That's not the total people that voted. No, that's just the percentage he got. This is how big this guy is. He's like a folk hero. Like he crushed it in India politics. And remember what we said on this show at the very beginning when you saw Prime Minister Modi going, "Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Come here. Let me give you a big bear hug. Oh, my God. I love you so much. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God." Remember all that? Yeah, there was a reason. Remember, who's the foil against China? What's going on? How are we winning? Who are we taking down? And who is standing up against China's Belt and Trans in Pakistan? Just keep these facts in mind of what's going on. And when you see what happened today, you start to understand that the world's largest democracy is behind Donald J. Trump. They just took Houston back today. Don't even have to go back there again. Houston is locked. Remember, Houston is a Democrat fighting point inside Texas. Remember that. And now remember what just happened. Just think these things through. Everything has consequences, and Donald Trump is on the top of this. That's why he did a rally for and with Prime Minister Modi in Houston, in America. Let me point out how big this is. Who speaks last at every event? Every event. Almost everywhere on the world. Who speaks last? Donald Trump. You know who spoke last today? Actually, you know who bookended Donald Trump today? Prime Minister Modi. He allowed Prime Minister Modi to go first and then come back to Stage and speak in, I think it was Hindi. Just keep this in mind, what's going on. These are big, big things that are moving, and Donald Trump is aware of this. So you'll see what goes on, but I'm just saying that that's a big thing to point out right there. 600 million people just voted for this guy. Very popular.
Now, you might have secured 50,000 votes from Indians in Houston, James. Now, if only you could fast track the 600 million votes in India to vote for Donald Trump, then you'd be honest.
There you go.
Wouldn't that be a great turn from Donald Trump? It's like, we've been talking about immigration for a long time, so we're going to put up a big wall to stop all the Hondurans and the Mexicans coming in, and we're going to ship in 600 million Indians. We're going to build a 7-Eleven. They're going to build a 7-Eleven on every corner. Okay, it's going to be fucking great. Small business is going through the roof, ladies and gentlemen. Vote for Donald Trump. We put walls on the southern border, and we bring in the Indians through the front door. It's going to be great. With that, James, we've pushed people to the edge in regards to the districts and what the Democrats are doing in those little battleground areas. So let's bring them back from the edge and send them off on a high note with this edition of The Hammering.
Stop the hammering.
CNN, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very confusing week for CNN. Let's not hold it against them. Indian collusion in the chat from Kimmy Jong-un. Exactly. To hell with Russia. To hell with Russia. They don't even have 600 million people. What the hell would I collude with them for? I'm colluding with the big guys. Right. Democratic stronghold in Minnesota turning to Trump, James.
Huge.
Turning to Trump.
In rural northern Minnesota, things are changing. The temperature, the leaves, the politics.
Are we talking thousands of people sort of shifting and changing their politics? Yeah.
We are.
Oh, yeah.
Once a Democratic stronghold, many of the voters we talk to here say more and more they align with the president.
Her two brothers were staunch Union Democrats for years, and they're not anymore.
This is mining country, not coal mining.
Mining country, James. Union workers, the working class. Could it be, James, the very same working class that the Republicans used to treat with disdain for the long times, right? Remember the country club Republicans? And it was the same working class that the Democrat Party used to ride into the White House in years gone by. But then something happened. Then the Democrats made a shift. And they looked at the demographics and said, no, fuck the white working class. We're going with the intellectual hard edge leftism and minority vote. That's who we're going to target. We're going to make the white working class out to be racists and evil and bigots and whatnot. We're going to smash the middle class. We're going to raise their taxes to pay for our fringe welfare programs. And now, for some unknown reason, Donald Trump comes out in the 2016 election and starts to break ranks with the Republicans and says, you know what, fuck this country club shit. I don't even talk to the rich guys. I talk to the cab drivers, all right? I don't even like the other rich people. They don't like me. But hey, how about just give me a job? I'm not worried about the transgender toilets. I just want a job. And who would have thought? Who would have thought that this message would resonate, James? And now you've got these former Democratic strongholds. Even now. It just goes to show how detached Joe Biden and the other Democrats are. They're ladies and gentlemen, whilst union districts in blue ribbon Democrat areas are switching to Donald Trump, as reported by CNN. So it's worse than they're saying, right? It's actually a lot worse than what they're pointing out. But as these union Democrat strongholds are flipping to Donald Trump, Kamala Harris and the other nominees, they are talking about giving abortions to transgender women. Like it matters.
Now, see, this is Minnesota. I think this directly ties to what we were just talking about, Boogie. This is what points out that Detroit is infinitely winnable.
Well, I struggle to think of how many guys driving these big dump trucks are spending their days concerned with transgender rights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
How many of the people living in the poor areas in Detroit go around really concerned about transgender rights and stuff? That's not to say that transgender stuff isn't an issue for some people, but is it the kind of issue that you can garner across the board support in the districts that you're going to need it in order to win an election? I would say no. No. Not when you're getting really highly specific. The way that they try to do it is say, well, everybody on the other side wants to kill you and throw you in camps. It's like, and I don't think that that's necessarily working anymore either.
Yeah. Granny
but
over the
taconite, a mineral used in making.
And remember, something that they're not going to mention in this CNN report. What else is Minnesota famous for in the last 10 years, James? Could it be the amount of refugees and immigrants coming into Minnesota? Could that be part of it?
Yeah, Little Somalia.
Could that have something to do with it? Little Somalia?
Yeah. Real quick to address two things in the chat. Real quick. Boogie didn't mean that every Republican was a country club Republican. He was talking about what the narrative was from the media, and I'm well aware that Detroit is in Michigan. My point is these are union workers with NRA hats on. They don't give a shit about transgender rights in Detroit while they're building cars any more than these guys do while they're mining whatever the fuck they're mining. These are union, hard-nosed, steel worker type men that love the NRA, that want to go home at night and drink a beer and watch some football and root for America, not guys that want to go out and say, hey, did your coworker get his new bathroom installed? That's not what's going on. That's the point.
Yeah, and to be fair, the country club remark, I'm not saying that everybody who voted Republican was in a country club, but I think if you're honest, if you look back at the Republican politicians of years gone by, these were the kind you like. If we were talking about Tucker Carlson before, Tucker Carlson grew up in that atmosphere. He knows it just about better than everyone, and he said in interviews, these guys had disdain for the working class. They were the kind of the Republicans that were in bed with the lobbyists at the country clubs with the expensive dinners, and then every now and then when an election rolled around, came out and talked some shit about Christianity. And people
like
lined up and voted for them. But when they went back to their lobbyist meetings, and when they went back to their office, they couldn't care less about you. He said that himself. So, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a country club, rich Republican or anything like that. But we have to separate. If the whole election of Donald Trump doesn't prove anything, it proves that there's a separation from the people who vote Republican versus the Republican Party. Because if that wasn't true, then he wouldn't be president. You would have voted for someone. You would have voted for Jeb Bush instead of Donald Trump.
That's right.
See what I mean?
Yep.
Steel. 40, 50 years ago, the Iron Range, as it's called, was booming, bringing big city prosperity to small towns like Evelyn.
Things were just going gangbusters.
The streets were paved with gold. The streets were paved with gold.
Business is all over. And when it crashed, everybody was caught by surprise. It crashed hard.
The number of mining jobs in the region went from over 14,000 in the 80s to just about 4,500 today.
Can you imagine the impact that has on these little towns? Can you imagine the impact that has on these little towns? A reduction that much money coming in. That's how towns die, ladies and gentlemen. Because there's nobody spending money at the supermarket. Nobody's spending money on the farm. Nobody's spending money at the bars, right? The money dries up. And then the shops close.
This is an absolute perfect example of the drum I beat constantly. There's only two ways to prosperity, mining or farming. The mining is the basis for all life in this community. It, just like Boogie just said, it all revolves around that. And this is why the EPA bullshit is one of the biggest things Donald Trump has done to fix this country, is getting them the hell out of the way.
That's arguably the most important thing that he's done. That and the regulations that he did like in his first week. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Where you have to get rid of 2 regulations for every one that you want to bring in. That and, in regards to what he's done in regards to the EPA have really freed this up. It's given the mining community its muscle back. Now they've got a bit of swagger again. In these districts, James, in these states, like long-time Democrats are now kind of going, well, all I see is you out there putting a 16-year-old up on a pedestal saying how we all need to be out of work in 5 years, right? That's all these people know is like mining in many cases. So,
leaving families and main streets to suffer.
There you go.
Robert Blisevich has been the mayor of Evelyn for 18 years, on and off. He votes Democrat on state races. But he's got a Trump sticker on his desk, a Christmas card from the president on his bulletin board, and the deer on his office wall. Sports a MAGA hat.
The political support.
Everybody, get that back to the deer so these guys can screenshot that. Screenshot that.
Democratic stronghold in Minnesota turning to Trump on CNN. Now, James, I'm pretty cynical. I'm the cynical half of this yin and yang, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You're the positive guy. I'm the cynical guy. I want to see if you're going to come to the cynical side of the argument here for a moment. I'm thinking that the reason that a story like this is making the rounds on CNN, and the reason that it got to the
yes,
to YouTube
I agree
as well,
with you. Before you even say it, I agree with you. I know what you're going to say. Go.
Not everything CNN does gets to YouTube. So this is something that they wanted out there. Okay. Somebody said, clip that, put it on YouTube. Let's start sharing it. Let's tweet it. Let's get it out there. People need to see it. The reason that something like this gets on YouTube from CNN is because the people at CNN are perhaps a little concerned that a lot of people in places like Minnesota are falling out of love with the Democrat Party when at the worst possible time. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yep. They're trying to drive
get
the
a little
vote back
fear
up.
into them.
That's right. They're sparking the fear underneath the Democrats, saying, "Hey guys, listen to this. You better get out and vote. You better, little Somalia, better overrun the state." That's exactly what they're doing. Spot on.
And this healthy-looking chap on the wall agrees.
His wall sports a MAGA hat.
The political support for the president, part of this is really just a matter of survival.
Economics.
Economics.
That's
it's the economy, stupid.
He's our guy. He supports mining. He's our guy.
Our steel industry is vibrant again. It was dead.
Trump's tariffs on imported steel are popular. So is his easing of environmental regulations.
Did you see that?
This isn't so much of the hammering as it is the vindication. I think we'll call it the vindication.
Yes.
Did he just say Trump's steel tariffs are popular?
Yes.
But James, but I thought everybody was going broke. I thought the country was screaming that we've made this very same argument about tariffs before in the past. Do you remember that we played that clip ages ago about the fucking that clueless Canadian woman who was the foreign minister or whatever for Justin Trudeau?
Yeah.
Do you remember? Can't remember her name. It's not important. Even the host of CNN or whatever channel she was on was pushing her. Like, really? Are you threatening the United States with tariffs? Okay. And she was talking about whiskey.
Yeah.
Now, Donald Trump wanted to put a tariff on Canadian oranges. I think that's correct. No. It was Canadian steel and car parts and stuff, right?
Yeah. Because of the transshipping Chinese part. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And in response, this woman on CNN was threatening to put tariffs on Canadian whiskey. Now, I made the point on this very show during that episode that it seems to me that if the Canadians put tariffs on whiskey going into the United States, that there's going to be a whole lot of people around like the areas of Kentucky that would be very happy with that.
Very happy. Yes. Jack Daniels, baby.
Exactly. So it's like, hang on. You're going to make our competition's stuff more expensive than ours? Okay.
Please.
Okay. But of course, you never get that side. You only get the side that's, the consumers are going to suffer. And I guess if you really like Canadian whiskey, that would be true. But there's always two sides to a tariff war. And the other side of the tariff war is the guys who are making the shit in the United States now get the playing field leveled somewhat, and now they can compete again a little bit, which puts more money in the pockets of regular Americans. The American stock market goes up, the share prices go up, people start buying more American products, and that money flows into the American tax system. It doesn't leave the borders, and then the government's got more money. Then you can get tax. The flow-on effects, right?
Yep.
To a point, obviously, to a point. Right. But there you have it. CNN saying, they love the steel. They love the steel tariffs up here.
Yep. And
they love the steel tariffs, James. Who would have
back it up like 5 seconds, and you'll hear he also praises the EPA cuts.
EPA, exactly.
Political support for the president. Part of this is really just a matter of survival.
Economics. Yep. That's, he's our guy. He supports mining. He's our guy.
Our steel industry is vibrant again. It was dead.
Trump's tariffs on imported steel are popular. So is his easing of environmental regulations.
Those environmental regulations, James, you know the Nazis and the KKK members who just want to burn the earth and bathe in the world's blood? Apparently, they're all Democrat voters.
Exactly. I would love to point out, though, that the exact terminology was they're popular. So, see, in order for them to put fear into the Democrat Party to show up to vote, they're telling you that the majority of people, including Democrats, like the steel tariffs and love the EPA cuts. So if in order for things to be popular, that means that more than 50% have to like something. So this is what they're telling. So they have to admit that he's popular in order to drive the fear that they're looking to drive.
Yep. So the Democrat Party can sit down and have a discussion and say, guys, we need to wind it back on the environmentalism. We need to pull that back. Just like they do every single time they get into power and they have the ability to do something on guns. They don't fucking do it. And the reason is because in areas like this, where they vote Democrat, any attempt to fuck with the Second Amendment will be met with hostile rage at the ballot box from Democrats. They know it. The only people that vote for the rampant environmentalism and taking everybody's guns live in places like New York and LA, where they're only going to vote Democrat regardless anyway, and it's not going to make a scintilla of difference come an election because there just isn't enough people spread around in big enough area. That's why they don't fuck with the Second Amendment, and that's why CNN right here in this piece is explaining to Democrats watching it that they're wrong on the environment based on the fact that Democrat voters are voting against what they want to introduce.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the vindication.
Stop the hammering.
Folks, that's all the time we got for you today. What an that was just a fabulous vindication, right? We know it's the hammering episode, but we just let CNN hammer themselves into the hole. I love it. We will see you next week. Tomorrow we got back the Daily Boogie. You can find that at The Daily Boogie. You can follow him at Boogie Bumper. You can follow me at Real Person PLTCS. And also my backup. Please follow my backup account. Please vote for me. Please clap at James Real Person so I can build that Periscope account up as well so we can do some things so that we have some ability to move. We love you guys, and we will see you next week. Aloha. Everybody have a great day.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake, baby. Shake and bake.
Do you remember when big tech called themselves the free speech platform and used slogans like "Don't be evil"? Fast forward a decade, and suddenly those platforms we loved for years have changed, and the promises they made at the start no longer apply. So what happened? How did we get here? Over the last decade, these companies have quietly moved their corporate headquarters outside the US to EU tax havens. The big change? Well, big tech is now governed under UN law. In simple terms, US free speech laws no longer apply to these platforms. What started as free speech for all is now regulated speech to some. We believe you, the people, not big tech, are the best judge of what you want to watch, read, and hear. We are content creators. We understand that a creator's ability to make a living should not be infringed upon. We created Zap Media with you in mind, a free market, next-gen media platform that believes in protecting your speech rights and, equally as important, your privacy, including IP theft and data mining. By removing the threat of censorship and freeing the market, content creators have a home base to build their platforms and grow their brands. The Zap Media community are brand ambassadors, coalescing behind publishers, subscribers, and advertisers alike. This is the beginning of the next big wave in digital media. With an estimated 225 million video-on-demand users expected by 2022, Zap is poised with your help to revolutionize the marketplace as we know it. We look forward to partnering with you.